Okay, now in this video, I will explain to you 5 types of clients that you want to avoid as a designer so you can be successful as me. Well, maybe you don't think I'm successful, but I never ask for your opinion. Anyways, let's get into this video and start learning about these clients. And before I get into this video, don't forget to follow me on Instagram. I upload a lot of work there and I think you will like it as a designer. Okay, now the first one is a client that doesn't pay you upfront. As a designer, you can always ask money upfront. It doesn't matter how experienced you are, how many projects you did before. You are a freelance designer and you don't want to end up with a client that doesn't pay you for your work. So the best way to avoid this is to have a client that agrees with you to pay upfront. You can ask 50% upfront. That's normal for a designer. So before you start working on something, you agreed with the client to work on a project, he agreed on the price you gave him, and tell him, I want 50% upfront. Sometimes a client says, no, I don't want to pay upfront. That means the client doesn't trust you and you want to avoid those type of clients. Maybe if the project is big, you can ask, well, maybe 50% is too much for the client. For instance, if you create a whole website and it costs a couple $100, maybe a couple $1,000 if it's a lot of work, then you can tell them, all right, now it's a big project, so let's do 30%. 30% is reasonable also. So try to aim for 50% upfront. That way, you know the client trusts you and you can build a relationship with the client. And after a couple of projects, when you work for some time with a client, you can drop the 50% if you trust each other. So after a time, you know how fast the client pays. So if a client pays really fast, you can drop the 50%. You know the client always pays you on time, so you don't have to worry about that. A client that asks to create stuff for free, and this also includes a client that has like a lot of changes, and every time he comes back and he says, oh, let's change this, let's change that. So you want to avoid those type of clients because they're used to doing that with designers, and you don't want those type of clients in your database or your relationships, whatever. The client need to understand you are the designer and not he is hiring you, you are not hiring him, so he needs to trust you in your work. So what I usually do is I like to keep the changes to max 2 times. So if the client wants to change something, I just tell them directly, all right, listen, if you want to change something, I can change, well, 2 times max. This doesn't mean I'm going to redesign the whole product. I'm just going to do 2 changes, maybe a little bit of text changes here and there. That doesn't matter. It's little changes. It's not much work. But if you wanted to change the whole design or something, you just need to tell them direct, hey, listen, this is going to cost extra. It's a lot of work. And if he doesn't want to pay that, you know, for next time, don't go with him again. Don't work with him again. You don't want that type of clients. So avoid these type of clients that also want to change every time. And that's exactly my next one. And that is a client that doesn't know what he wants. Some clients just like to see what you create with his idea. And when you are done with the product, he's going to come up with his own idea. So that way he has like this mindset of, all right, I'm going to let him do his thing. He will create something for me. And after that, I see what I want to create. So that way you are creating 2 products for 1 price. And that's of course good for the client because he can see like 2 designs and he can choose from that. But that's not how it works. You cannot create 2 products for 1 price. He needs to understand that. So before the project, always ask a client what he wants, and it's even better to ask the client, can you show me examples of what you want? That way you have a clear view of what he wants and you don't end up with a client that constantly wants to change the whole design and redesign and get two things for 1 price. All right, next one is a client that doesn't pay enough for the time you put in the project. Before you start on the project, you need to know how much time will it cost me to create this product. So the best way to do this is I use Toggle. It's a free software. I will put a link in the description so you can check it out if you want. And every time I work on a project, I just use Toggle and I start tracking my time. So when I'm done with the whole project, I have an estimated view of how much time this project cost me. So next time when a client asks me, well, how much is it gonna cost? And I know exactly how much time one project it costs. If I, for instance, create a flyer for an event and I don't know how much time it will cost me, after a couple of projects, you can watch and toggle how much time each flyer costs. And later on, you have an estimated view of the time you will need to create this product. So if a client doesn't pay enough for your time, so for instance, if you tell a client, all right, this is gonna cost me like 10 hours to create and it's gonna be $500 if you charge 50 bucks per hour. And if the client says, oh no, I don't want to pay that, it's too much, it's not in my budget, you ask him, well, what is your budget for the project? If he says, well, around $100, I will just avoid that client because he doesn't pay enough for the time you put in. But if he says like maybe $400 and your price was $500, you can agree on that because, well, it's close to what you asked for and you can drop a little bit. That's okay. So try to toggle your time with toggle so you can always know how much time a project will cost, and that way you can get paid for the amount of hours you put in work, and you don't have to end up with putting a lot of work in a project and get paid really below what you should ask for. Client that doesn't pay within 2 weeks. When you're done with the project, you need to get paid on time. So you don't want to wait like a month for your money because you need to pay rent and stuff. And the client knows that he needs to pay directly. And if he doesn't pay within a week, you know that client is going to do it at every time. And you want to avoid that type of client. Well, if it's a business that approaches me for a design project, I tell them, all right, at the end of the project, I'd like to get paid for this project. And 2 weeks is the range for the business, but a month is really max. And if it's longer than a month, you don't want to have the client anymore. Next time, you just don't work with him anymore because he's gonna do it every time because he sees, all right, I can just be relaxed with him. I can pay him whenever I want. But you need to pay rent, and the rent is not gonna wait for your 2 months to pay. So try to avoid this type of clients and find people that pay upfront. Of course, that is really important. And if you see client pays directly, that means he's a good client. But be cautious with this because some clients in the beginning they start to pay good, pay like directly after you're done, and after a couple of years they just think, oh well, I can pay him later because I know him. But it doesn't work like that. He needs to pay directly after the project. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to like this video, and I see you on the next one.